Hey guys, happy Friday today. I got some things I want to share with everyone, some content. There's been a lot going on in the world, a lot going on in the world in general, and I was doing a bunch of research about companies, about people, and just wanted to share some things that were on my mind around succeeding, why leaders succeed, why they fail. Welcome to the KLear Channel. KLear Channel, our goal, our purpose, our intention, the reason this channel was even created a few years ago is to help fulfill a mission. Our mission is to help change the world one leader at a time. We know with the industry that we're in, I know with the people that I surround myself with, the teaching, the coaching, the mentorship, I'm super proud because I know we're doing just that. So for all of you that are listening and maybe jumping on the channel to listen to today's content, I'll tell you that the world is changing. The world is changing. The economy is changing. Obviously, a lot of governmental changes, a lot of leadership changes. And I want to talk through about being the CEO. What does that mean? And keep in mind, you're the CEO of your life long before you're potentially the CEO of a business or the leader of an organization or a coach of a sports team. I'm super proud of this little 12-year-old soccer team that I help coach on a weekly basis and their attitudes about things and how they're progressing in the different tournaments they're in. But why do businesses fail? Why do leaders fail? And, I'll tell you, there's lots of reasons. There could be some, cash problems, poor cash management. Obviously, cash flow is huge when it comes to a business. It could be just the product or service. There may not be a demand for that product or service. With the world changing with imports and exports, there's these tariffs that are causing a lot of changes in an industry where there's now unforeseen issues with cost. The products that people are buying all over the world, if they're part of their business, now are more costly. I saw recently that Toyota saw a downturn last month of almost 30% in some of their sales. And that's going to be more and more as the economies of different countries change and evolve. And then, if you're running a small business, and even, again, for your life, you're the CEO of your life, there's sometimes that there's decisions that are made that impact a business. You do things with all the best intentions. We all do things with all the best intentions. And I think sometimes it catches up to us. It doesn't always work out. And if it's business, there could be some competitors. There could be people coming into your space. There could be people competing for the same business that you're going after. How are you different than a competitor? If there's vendors or clients that you work with, how do you maintain a competitive edge? Right? But I'll tell you, one of the things I want to talk about is adaptation and how important it is to adapt. I remember, many, many years ago, I was telling the story yesterday in our office, but, there's an old company named Nokia. At one point, they were the largest mobile manufacturer of phones in the world. I remember having this Nokia phone. It was like a block. I used to change the faceplate of it from red to blue to whatever. That's what made it unique. That's also made me realize it was my Nokia. But that was the phone I had in college. It was a big Zach Morris type phone from, the TV show. But Nokia is no longer in business. They're no longer in business. And, there's lots of other companies, Kmart, a big one. At one point, their company was a $37 billion business. It employed over 350,000 employees. And, Kmart's not around anymore. Again, why is Target or Costco or Meijer, all these other big retail stores, why are they doing so well and expanding? And they have their own challenges for sure. But Kmart's not even around anymore, right? Why did they go backwards? And there's other things like Compaq. There was an old computer company that manufactured PCs. They're not around anymore. And so I'll tell you, adaptation, learning how to evolve, learning how to adapt is huge. huge. And so when it comes to leadership and there's, decision making, oftentimes there's people that have to learn from their own mistakes. I highly encourage you to learn from others' mistakes, from a mentor, a coach. Why do you have to go through it, right? So that as a consultant, coach, and mentor of a lot of salespeople, such a breath of fresh air when someone new in the industry, new organization, or someone new that I'm coaching just listens. They listen and they apply. Man, do they speed up in their career. Man, do they get ahead. They hit big sales numbers. They grow in their careers. They grow in their roles. And it's just such a breath of fresh air. But yeah, learning from others' mistakes. And, I'll tell you, if you make tough decisions, you make poor decisions, you're going to feel the pain. If you run things by people that have been in your shoes before and that are a mentor or coach, I have one that I pay a good amount of money for an hour of his time that walks me through how to look at things and, make sure that they are giving me feedback before I make decisions. So good. So good. And listen, I haven't always been that way. I've definitely burned my hand, but I realize that I need a mentor and a coach. And when it comes to financials, right? Financial spending is a big reason why companies go out of business and why a lot of people will succeed is they know the saying that details cost you money or details will make you money. I remember when I ran my first business when my first business was in business, my first few years, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I wasn't on top of all my bills as a company. There's bills that would come into our office. I'd send them off to my bookkeeper. I wouldn't think through them, look at them, figure out what the bills were for. I was young. I wasn't paying attention. We had a decent amount of revenue coming in until one day I was on a call with my bookkeeper, my financial coach. And we went through the bills of the company. And they asked me, "Hey, what's this bill for this toner and this supplies that we've been getting? We've been spending almost $1,000 a month on this supplies for literally 4 or 5 months now." And I looked at the information on the bill. They sent me copies of it. I'm like, "That's not the big machine we have. I thought we were paying for those toners." "No, those are included in your services." And I started looking more into it. Long story short, this company had a recording that they called our office and got one of our office managers to agree over the phone for some services and for some toner. And they've been billing us for this toner for 4 or 5 months. That sometimes we got the toner, sometimes we didn't. And they were stacked up in our supply closet because we get a ton of packages. They just kept selling us toner. We kept paying for it. And it was just a huge mistake. I remember my first year as a business owner, I didn't sign up for a long distance carrier. I know some of you guys that are listening to the channel today, we had to pick unlimited long distance. It wasn't just a part of the plan back then. We had to pay per minute per phone call. And my first phone bill from AT&T was over $1,000 for 1 month of service in my company. And again, such a painful lesson to not be on top of details and making poor financial decisions. And I'll tell you, when it comes to leadership and it comes to growing a business, sometimes people succeed because they're an incredible talent scout, picking great talent. I have a philosophy around I'm looking for 5-star athletes. Not only am I looking for 5-star athletes, but I'm looking for the 3 or 4-star athlete that has the potential to be a 5-star athlete. And there's lots of things, lots of tests that people have, not just in a hiring process. There's tests that whether we want them to happen or not in sales and with customers and in business in general. And I'm constantly just trying to pay attention to how people respond. Do they have an optimistic outlook on things? Is the world falling apart? And, it's never going to change. But hiring great people and when growing a business is vital. But I'll tell you, when I talk about business and why leaders and why CEOs succeed, I also believe it's in direct alignment with life, right? So how do we succeed in the game of life? Well, when instead of hiring and weak hiring practices or great hiring practices, it's really who do you surround yourself with, right? You choose to surround yourself with a certain group of people. Are those people leveling you up? Are they encouraging you and giving you confidence and building you to accomplish what you want? And when it comes to decision making in your life, are you running things by people that have been in your shoes and that have done what you're looking to do? When it comes to cash flow, are you someone who lives below their means and they're frugal and you're thoughtful? You have a calendar for your bills. You have a calendar for things that you're looking to do next. And and just when you think of the impact that you want to make on yourself, all these things from business can be applied directly to yourself. Now, I'll tell you, and when it comes to pivot, let me get into my second point. So first part is succeeding, failing. And listen, by the way, failing is never permanent. And I would encourage you to understand that you're going to fail forward often. You're going to make mistakes and learn. You're going to make mistakes and grow. You're going to fail temporarily to grow later. You're going to get your ego knocked down. You're going to get your confidence crushed. It's going to serve you later. So just remember, failure, that word, is not definitive. It's just a moment in time. You will move on. You will grow from it if you have the right attitude towards things. But I also want to talk to you guys a bit about industry and how things are evolving in the world. I'll tell you, when I went through some mentorship and some coaching calls that I had in the last few days, I'm starting to think more about positioning in the marketplace and kind of where the world is going. 2020 was a big impact on a lot of us. There's a lot of people that had their world flipped upside down. Some people were laid off or furloughed in their industries. A lot of today's world, restaurants, retailers, and businesses in general. A lot of people went over to start ordering things online or getting things sent to them directly. There's also still a considerable amount of people that like going out to restaurants, that like going into a store and purchasing things. And a lot of you guys that listen to this channel are thinking about your future and thinking about how, where you can position yourself to be successful. And oftentimes it's being in the right industry. And sometimes it's taking a bet on yourself, doing something a little bit against the grain. There's in the industry that I'm in, we're in face-to-face sales and marketing. We get hired by large telecom companies, typically energy companies, businesses that need this type of representation. I mainly focus in the retail space, and it's very interesting to learn about what these massive retailers are doing to becoming the one-stop shop for everything. Where there's groceries, there's the makeup stuff with the different organizations. There's now wireless companies and technology companies. There's just everything. They're looking to get this really massive, big box, organization where they can have everything under one roof and have one experience. Even have coffee shops, right? They have pizza places. They have everything in their locations now. But it's just very interesting to see. I drove by the mall the other day because I was taking my son to a store, and it's just so crazy to see how many of these smaller companies, these smaller chains, are not making it through these tough times. And I'm sure over the next year or so, we're going to see that even more, unfortunately, because of the changes in the world economy. But a lot of you guys are thinking about, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right things? But super, super important to pay attention to the world and where the world is going. I know I'm incredibly grateful for the industry that we're in and what we're looking to accomplish next. Thanks for joining us today. Hope that was it hit your heart a little bit, got you thinking a little bit about succeeding, about growing, and what your life could look like as you lean into all the things that you need to lean into. There's a reason companies succeed. There's a reason why leaders succeed. Remember, you are the CEO of your own life. You got one life to live. and don't take it for granted.